first image takes us to the staff car park at Butlins, North Wales. Among the rows of cars is my own Mini, parked there in 1981. Just another member of staff starting another busy season by the sea. Staff cars were not allowed on the camp. From here, we look towards the main entrance of the camp. Beyond the staff car park stands the security lodge, the gateway between the outside world and the holidaymakers and staff escape. Every coach, every family, and every suitcase pass through here on the way to a week of excitement. But if you were staff 18 weeks, inside the camp, new arrivals meet at the reception area. This was the first place the guests would see, where redcoats stood, ready to welcome them with smiles and energy. Outside, a yellow Mark III Cortina, a typical car of the 1970s, sits parked as people gather around, arriving and setting off on their holiday. Just beyond reception, the swimming pool comes into view. 2 lifeguards stand on duty, keeping watch as families and children fill the water. This is still the North Camp, and on a busy Saturday, the place would be alive with movement and noise. 2 members of staff relax for a few moments. Among them are Mark and Jeff, taking in the rush of another packed weekend. Nearby, more staff chat together, sharing a brief moment before the next wave of guests needs their attention. These small moments capture the everyday life of Butlin staff, where work and social life often blended together. A waitress from the Windsor dining room walks past the Cortina 200E, with another staff member just behind her. Outside the French ballroom, one of the camp managers is seen giving instructions to a redcoat. Behind the scenes, the smooth running of the resort depended on constant organisation and teamwork. Elsewhere around the camp, staff and campers stroll between buildings. Some staff are on duty, others taking a quick break. 2 more workers stop to talk, stealing a moment of rest in the middle of a long shift. Now we make our way towards South Camp, passing the Empire Theatre, the swimming pool, the Regency, and the Windsor dining room. Another Mark III Cortina is parked nearby, a reminder of the era these scenes belong to. The Continental Bar stands ready to serve its customers. Next door is the Continental Cafe, and beside it, the camp shop. In the days before mobile phones, this was also where guests came to use the public telephones to call home. From here, the path leads up towards the chairlift, and the opposite direction, the amusement park. Rides and attractions fill the space, drawing children and adults alike. Standing proudly among them is Arthur Testel, the manager of the amusement park. Alongside him are Barry and Bernadette Wall, the deputy manager, who helped keep everything running smoothly, both originally from Wolverhampton. A worker stands by the Dodgems, one of the most popular rides in the park. Nearby, the donkeys look out over the green, waiting patiently for the next group of children. Another member of staff watches over the children's jet ride, making sure everything is safe. The Alice ride runs gently, with a worker keeping a careful eye on things. Elsewhere, staff gather for a photograph. In the background stands Mark Poland, alongside Anthony from St. Helens and Karen, a local girl. Over by the donkeys, Mark Bishop can be seen wearing his red and white striped hat. He was responsible for their care, another small but important part of life at Butlins. But it wasn't always easy. Alongside the fun and laughter, there were moments of tension and hassle too, part of working in a busy holiday camp. It has its perks though. The staff bar at Butlins Pwllheli was also known as the Tudor Bar. This was where staff would come for a drink, sometimes before work, certainly after, and very often on our days off. The prices were cheaper than the guest bars, which made it even more popular. I remember a pint of strong bow cider costing just 42 pence. There's a photograph here of Val Morris, who did over 35 seasons as the manageress of the staff canteen, an absolute institution on camp. Some of these photos show staff having a bit of fun in the Tudor Bar. This particular one was taken right at the beginning of the season, when everyone had to sign for their chalet keys and collect their staff passes. The season hadn't really started yet, but the social life already had. We then move on to the French ballroom. Outside, a redcoat and an amusement park worker look like they're getting a bit friendly. There's Jeff Williams with his girlfriend Anne, caught in a relaxed moment before the night really gets going. Now we're inside the French ballroom. On stage is Sweet Sauce, and the place is packed. There's one chap who looks a bit worse for wear and is probably about to be escorted out. Everyone dancing, laughing and letting go. Redcoats are joining in the fun, mixing with staff and guests alike. Sweet Sauce are back on stage again. The atmosphere's buzzing. There's a redcoat being a bit silly. She completely loses the plot, and then it's straight back to the dancing.
She's singing Into a Tin of Anchovies, by the way. I beg your pardon.
One man here looks like the greatest dancer I've ever seen. Another one, probably the worst dancer I've ever seen. But that was the French ballroom. It didn't matter. Everyone danced.
One night in the disco on the outskirts of Bristol, I was cruising with my favorite gang. The place was so boring, filled with out-of-towners touring. I knew that it wasn't my thing. I really wasn't caring, but I felt my eyes staring.
Mark Wyatt in the French ballroom in 1980. Jeff appears again with his girlfriend, then with a couple of staff. These photos look like they were taken after the bar had shut, when we were still hanging around, Mark and Karen and others. Mark and Karen again, the night clearly not quite over yet. Now we move on to the beer cellar. First, the outside, with staff appearing in their smart uniforms. This is a side view of the beer cellar building. There's a sense of planning here. Staff talking, discussing, getting ready for the evening ahead. Then inside. Here's a group shot inside the beer cellar, Mark Wyatt included, along with Steve Harper, Jimmy Howard, Tom Regan wearing the hat, and Nikki New from St. Helens. We move on to the Regency, right by the boating lake. This was where you'd find dancing, cabaret, and evening entertainment more for adults. There's a photo of one of the bar staff with the supervisor, planning the night ahead, and then some of the acts who performed there. Another evening about to begin. The Regency was more of a cabaret lounge and dancing for adults. I used to do glass collecting in the evenings for a bit of extra cider money, mainly on Saturday, Sunday and Monday nights when I was skint. Payday was Tuesday. The Regency ballroom sat right next to the Regency bar, and there was only one set of toilets in the whole building. So if you were in the bar and needed the loo, you had to walk straight through the ballroom. Inside, there was always this old jazz waltzing music playing. At the time, I remember thinking, all these old fogies waltzing around. You'd walk through, use the toilets, and then come back out into a much younger environment. Funny thing is, now I'm one of those old fogies myself. Looking back, it brings back so many memories. The atmosphere, the music, black leather everywhere. That wasn't the only time I was there, but it was a lot of the time I was there. That night, it was the Mike Ewing trio on stage. There was even a redcoat trying to join in with the dancing. It was a full night if you were over 50, but I was only 23. Cabaret night at the Spanish bar. This was where the big names appeared. Famous comedians like Mike Reed, Ted Rogers, Bob Monkhouse and Ken Dodd. If you were lucky, you could get put on glass collecting during one of these cabaret nights. I managed that once when Mike Reed didn't turn up. The campers were not very happy, but this night he did.
Jesus Christ. It's like a bleeding Jewish lighthouse in here, isn't it? Shut up, Trappy. You want to see the dressing room they're giving? There's a notice on the door, said beware of puffs. There was a notice on the mirror, said beware of puffs. There was a message on the floor. I bent down to look at it. It said, you've been warned twice.
Bob Monkhouse.
Great. Thank you, my friends. What a pleasure. Who the hell's that? What a pleasure to see you here in this elegant castle. What a thrill to be here in the Pig and Whistle. It used to be called the Duck and Ferret, but people pronounced it wrong. What a pleasure to be here.
After that, we move on to the Empire Theatre. This was mainly a family venue with musicals and stage shows. Musicals were never really my thing, so I didn't go there much. I did go a couple of times, but that was about it. As you can see, the sign reads, Inclement Weather, Force 5. If it was too windy or raining, the chairlift didn't open, which meant we didn't have to work either. Our national anthem on the chairlift in 1979 was, It Might As Well Rain Until September. This is Roy Gibbons. Roy was the supervisor of the chairlift permanent staff in 1979, 1980, 1981 and beyond. A very smart, well-dressed man and very proud of his job. Here we see a worker outside the chairlift. Now we go inside. There's Roy again. This is Roy's office. And here he is, sitting on the bench outside his office. There he is once more, standing in the doorway. And these are the chairlift lads of 1979. From left to right. Steve Harper, Mark Wyatt, Tom Regan, Roy Gibbons, supervisor, Jimmy Howard, and John Howard, assistant supervisor. This was the best set of lads ever to work on the chairlift. Here's a chair just leaving the beach station. This is what we used to do. Help the campers in. Make sure they left the station safely. You can see the rope, all the mechanics, and then the quietness of being in the open air heading for the beach. Once you leave the camp station and the noise behind, everything changes. All around you are fantastic views. The Snowdonia range stretching out in the distance. It's peaceful up here. There's no real noise at all, just natural sounds. Perhaps a few voices drifting up from below, and the hooter of the miniature railway in the distance. You glide over the cliff edge, where the adders used to bask when the weather was warm. The chairlift was open to everyone, campers, workers and staff on their days off. Everything was free. On your day off, you could almost pretend you were on holiday yourself. You'd ride the chairlift, take in the views, and often meet new members of staff along the way. Here's Mark now, meeting a new member of the team, showing her around and explaining how things work. As they chat, the beach station slowly comes back into sight below. By now, you're quite high up. All you can hear is the sound of the chairs rattling over the wheels on top of the pylons. Then you arrive, back into the noise again, coming into the beach station. Someone is waiting to escort you out of your chair. From here, the sea views are incredible. On a good day, you could even spot dolphins and porpoises out in the water. A few of the chairlift lads are taking a break. Here comes another chair into the beach station. The chairs were carefully spaced out using what was known as the spacer, so they wouldn't crash into one another. This gave the attendants just enough time to help people out of the chairs, swing them round and line them up for the next group waiting to get on. On busy days, there could be quite a crowd down here at the beach station. Like most young lads, we sometimes messed about. One of the dares was to grab hold of a chair, hang on, and see if you could clear the fence before letting go. I did it once, cleared the fence, and twisted my ankle. I couldn't walk properly for 2 days. I was lucky I recovered quickly, because as seasonal staff, if you had more than 2 days off, you were sacked. I never did that again. There's another lad hanging onto the rope there. They were great days. That's the view behind the beach station, all the way back to the camp. It was the longest Butlins chairlift of all the camps. I reckon it was over a mile long. Here we are helping 2 young ladies back into the chair. And some kids as well. And then a bit later, the queues start to build up outside the beach station. Everyone wants to get back before closing time. This queue here is about half an hour before we shut. Then one of us would have to lock up and walk back. We had a little tactic though. We could still lock up and ride back in one of the chairs, but it could have consequences, so only did it now and again. A short walk now to the miniature railway, the chairlift on the left, and the stables nearby. I got quite friendly with one of the stable girls in 1979. I can't remember her name, but she looked after one of the horses called Thomas. I was hoping to see her in 1980 season, but she didn't return. From there, we head over to the Windsor dining room. Here we see some of the Windsor staff on their break, clearly enjoying themselves, posing for photographs and looking very relaxed and happy. We're now in South Camp, where waiters and waitresses are making their way to work. There's Freddie, the Windsor supervisor from Liverpool, in 1980, chatting with another member of staff. Looks like a good place to work friendly and easygoing. More Windsor staff here, possibly on a break, or maybe just back from lunch at the staff canteen. And outside the Windsor again, people clearly enjoying themselves. That looks like it could be the start of a serious relationship. Who knows? Now we move on to the staff canteen. Here are some of the amusement park lads heading up, along with girls from the shops and the takeaway. More chairlift and amusement park workers follow behind. It's the end of the day now, so they're heading in for their tea. Salad on Sundays. More staff queuing up, showing their staff passes to get inside. And here's Mr. Wyatt, outside, C15, East Annex. There's definitely a bit of romance in the air, a security guard and a girl from the shop. But hang on, what's going on here? Someone's in trouble. Yes, they've sent for the van. He's being put in the security van, and he doesn't look very happy at all. What's he been up to? Oh dear, here he is again. I think it's Jeff Williams turned rogue. And there he goes, locked in the van. And then another one. Get the van. Another one. Get the vans out. It's not all roses here. Busy night for security. There's Alan Evans, head of security, often a busy man, and his stepson, Mark Sheridan. And here are two chalet maids. They used to call them chalet monsters. I've never understood that. They're gorgeous. This is G-Line, East Annex, male staff accommodation. And here we have South Annex, the female staff accommodation. Any male staff caught in these chalets faced instant dismissal. And finally, we're back inside C15 again, East Annex, with Mr. Wyatt, assistant supervisor of the chairlift, 1981. Just a few more photographs before we close. This is Carol, who was there in 1979 and 1980. She worked somewhere in South Shop, possibly the Continental, I'm not completely sure. She was from Manchester, and still is. Here we have Karen, with a friend at the amusement park. Karen was a local girl from Pwllheli. This is Mark Poland, and Karen sitting on the gallopers. And here's Mark again. He did at least 7 seasons. I think his first season was 1979. And this is Pops from New Brighton, my very first chalet mate. When I arrived, there was already a suitcase on the bottom bunk, and I remember thinking, oh my God. Then Pops turned up, and he was a right pisshead. He was 60 plus. I was 23. He reminded me of the pisshead children's entertainer in High to High, very much like that character. Anyway, it didn't last long. I managed to get a swap, and I ended up with a chalet to myself. The chairlift lads. That was Steve Harper from Liverpool, me Mark Wyatt from Wirral, Merseyside, Tom Regan from Bury, and twin brothers John and Jimmy Howard from Oldham. Between us, we bought 2 cars. Steve and I shared a Ford Escort. Jimmy, John and Tom bought a black Vauxhall Viva. We left the Butlins Pwllheli on the 15th of September 1979. Heading for South Wales, Barry Island Butlins carried on for another 2 weeks. So it was around the 29th of September when we finally made our decision about where to go next. Originally, we were meant to be grape picking in France, but we didn't have enough money. So instead, we played a game, pin the tail on the donkey, using a map of the UK. Wherever the pin landed, that's where we'd go. The pin landed on Bournemouth. After 3 or 4 days sleeping rough, Jimmy, John and Tom had had enough. They went home. Steve and I carried on. We stuck it out and eventually found work at Max Factor in Bournemouth. I settled in well and hung about with Avril and Sharon and a younger lad called Kevin. We had some good laughs. I've never seen Jimmy Howard, John Howard or Tom Regan since. I've tried to get in contact over the years, but I've never managed to find them. Now, at 69, I sometimes wonder if they're still alive. I know one thing for certain. I'm lucky to be here.